In the annals of crime, few names evoke such chilling recognition as Jack the Ripper. His name has become synonymous with fear and mystery, a dark figure lurking in the shadows of history. The year was 1888, a time when London was the heart of the British Empire, a city of grandeur and squalor, of opulence and poverty. The heart of London, a city at the zenith of its power, was gripped by an unprecedented terror. The bustling streets, usually filled with the sounds of commerce and life, were now overshadowed by a growing sense of dread. A specter haunted the cobbled streets of Whitechapel, leaving a trail of blood and fear in its wake. The residents of this impoverished district lived in constant fear, their lives overshadowed by the looming threat of the Ripper. The case of Jack the Ripper remains one of the most baffling mysteries in criminal history. Despite the efforts of the best detectives of the time, the Ripper eluded capture, leaving behind only questions and horror. Despite over a century of investigation and speculation, the identity of the killer remains shrouded in enigma. Theories abound, but none have definitively unmasked the man behind the moniker. The Ripper's reign was short, spanning a mere 3 months, yet, in that brief period, he committed a series of brutal murders that shocked the world and left an indelible mark on history. However, the brutality of the crimes and the mystery surrounding the perpetrator have left an indelible mark on our collective consciousness. The fear and fascination with Jack the Ripper have endured through the decades, inspiring countless books, films, and theories. This essay delves into the heart of this enduring mystery. We will explore the dark alleys and foggy streets of Victorian London, seeking to understand the context in which these heinous crimes occurred. We will examine the historical context, the victims, the suspects, and the enduring fascination with this unsolved case. Each piece of evidence, each theory, brings us closer to understanding the mind of the Ripper, yet the truth remains elusive. Join us as we journey back to Victorian London, to the shadowy streets where terror reigned and a killer walked unseen. Together we will piece together the fragments of this dark puzzle, seeking to shed light on one of history's most infamous mysteries. Imagine the sights and sounds of Victorian London. The air is thick with the scent of coal smoke and the distant hum of industry. Gaslights cast flickering shadows on bustling streets, illuminating the faces of hurried pedestrians and the occasional street performer. Horse-drawn carriages clatter over cobblestones, their wheels echoing through narrow alleyways, while the clip-clop of hooves adds a rhythmic backdrop to the city's symphony. A cacophony of vendors' cries fills the air, each one vying for the attention of passers-by, selling everything from fresh produce to handmade trinkets. This was Whitechapel, a district teeming with life but also plagued by poverty, crime, and vice. The streets were a maze of narrow lanes and dark corners, where the desperate and destitute sought refuge. It was against this backdrop that the shadow of Jack the Ripper fell, casting a pall over the already grim reality of life in Whitechapel. Between August and November of 1888, 5 women, all living and working in the underbelly of Whitechapel, were brutally murdered. Their deaths were not just a series of crimes, but a grim narrative that unfolded in the heart of London. Their names were Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. Each woman had her own story, her own struggles, and her own dreams, all cut short by a merciless hand. These women, often forgotten by society, became forever linked by a shared tragic fate. Their lives, once overlooked, became the center of a dark and enduring mystery. The Whitechapel murders sent shockwaves through London and beyond. Newspapers splashed sensational headlines, and the public's imagination was gripped by fear and fascination. Fear gripped the city as the killer, always one step ahead, remained elusive. People looked over their shoulders, suspicious of strangers, and the once bustling streets grew eerily quiet at night. The police, under immense pressure, launched a massive manhunt. Detectives scoured the streets, interviewed countless witnesses, and followed every lead, but the Ripper seemed to vanish like a ghost. However, their efforts were hampered by the fog-choked streets, the limitations of forensic science at the time, and the sheer terror that gripped the community. The fog not only obscured the streets, but also the truth, leaving the mystery of Jack the Ripper unsolved to this day. The victims of Jack the Ripper were women living on the margins of society. They were often overlooked and forgotten, their lives marked by hardship and struggle. These women, who faced daily battles for survival, became the tragic figures in one of history's most infamous series of crimes. They were mothers, daughters, and sisters, but their stories were often lost in the shadow of their killer's infamy. Each of these women had a unique story, a life filled with moments of joy and sorrow, dreams and disappointments. Yet, in the annals of history, they are often remembered only for the gruesome manner of their deaths. It is important to remember them not just as victims but as individuals whose lives were tragically cut short. They were more than just names on a list, they were real people with real lives. Their stories deserve to be told not just as a footnote to the tale of Jack the Ripper, but as a testament to their existence and the harsh realities they faced. Mary Ann Nichols, known as Polly, was the first victim. Born into a working-class family, Polly's life was marked by a series of unfortunate events. She struggled with alcoholism and was estranged from her husband and children. Despite these hardships, she was known to be a kind and gentle woman. She was last seen alive on the night of August 31st, 1888. Polly was seen walking the streets of Whitechapel, trying to earn enough money for a night's lodging. Her final moments were spent in the dark, foggy streets of Victorian London, unaware of the danger that lurked in the shadows. Her body was discovered shortly before 4 a.m. in Bucks Row, Whitechapel, her throat slashed and her abdomen mutilated. The brutality of her murder shocked the community and marked the beginning of a reign of terror that would grip London for months. Annie Chapman, the second victim, was found murdered on September 8th. Annie, like Polly, had a difficult life. She was separated from her husband and had lost several children. She struggled with health issues and poverty, yet she was remembered as a friendly and caring person. Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes followed in quick succession on September 30th, their bodies discovered within an hour of each other. Elizabeth, known as Long Liz, was a Swedish immigrant who had come to London in search of a better life. Catherine, or Kate, was a lively woman with a quick wit, despite her struggles with alcoholism and homelessness. The final victim, Mary Jane Kelly, was found in her room on November 9th. Mary Jane was the youngest of the victims, and perhaps the most enigmatic. She was known for her beauty and charm, and unlike the other victims, she had a room of her own. Her murder was the most brutal, her body horrifically mutilated. Her murder was the most brutal, her body horrifically mutilated. The savagery of the crime left the community in shock and fear. Mary Jane's death marked the end of the Ripper's known killing spree, but the mystery and horror of the murders continued to haunt London. These 5 women, united in death, became symbols of the vulnerability of women in Victorian society, particularly those living in poverty and on the fringes. Their lives and deaths highlight the harsh realities faced by many women of that era, who were often left to fend for themselves in a society that offered little support. Their stories serve as a reminder of the human cost of this unsolved mystery. They were more than just victims of a notorious killer. They were individuals with hopes, dreams, and struggles. Remembering them helps us to understand the broader social issues of their time and the enduring impact of their tragic fates. Adding to the terror and intrigue of the Whitechapel murders were a series of letters sent to the police and press. These letters, often written in a bizarre and boastful tone, claimed to be from the killer himself. The most infamous of these, signed Jack the Ripper, gave the killer his enduring moniker. The Dear Boss letter, received by the Central News Agency in September 1888, mocked the police's efforts and threatened further violence. The From Hell letter, sent to George Lusk, the head of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, was even more chilling. It arrived with a small box containing half a human kidney, purportedly from one of the victims. Whether these letters were genuine or elaborate hoaxes perpetrated by individuals seeking notoriety remains a subject of debate. Regardless of their authenticity, they played a significant role in shaping public perception of the case, fueling the media frenzy and creating the myth of Jack the Ripper as a cunning and taunting adversary. As the shadows lengthened and the sun dipped below the horizon, the city of London braced itself for another night of uncertainty. The clock was ticking, and every second counted. With each passing moment, the fear of another attack grew stronger, gripping the hearts of the city's residents. The police force, stretched thin and desperate for leads, knew they were in a race against time. Would they be able to uncover the identity of the elusive Jack the Ripper before he struck again? The stakes had never been higher, and the darkness seemed to close in from all sides. As the investigation deepened, a myriad of suspects emerged. From butchers to doctors and even royalty, the list seemed endless. Each suspect brought with them a new theory, a new twist in the tale. But despite all the scrutiny, the true identity of Jack the Ripper remained elusive. London in the late 19th century was a city of stark contrasts. The grandeur of its wealth stood in sharp opposition to the squalor of its poverty. In the dark alleys and foggy streets, shadows danced and fear lurked. It was in this labyrinth of shadows that Jack the Ripper found his stage and his victims. Over the years, Jack the Ripper has transcended from a mere criminal to a cultural icon. Books, films, and even graphic novels have kept his story alive, each adding their own spin to the legend. The gruesome tale has captivated imaginations, ensuring that the Ripper's dark legacy endures through the ages. Despite over a century of investigation, speculation, and fascination, the mystery of Jack the Ripper remains unsolved. The unanswered questions continue to haunt us, a chilling reminder of the darkness that once gripped the streets of London. And so, the legend of Jack the Ripper endures, a puzzle that may never be fully pieced together.